Hello, good afternoon. Assalamu alaikum. I'm here with another episode of our Justice for All Now show. Thank you for joining us. We're going to be talking about a very serious topic today, where we're seeing the coronavirus is affecting the Rohingyas in Malaysia. I'm your host, Hena Zuberi, and we will be talking about there are reports that sensational reporting from some local media outlets in Malaysia have many Malaysians taking to social media to claim that the Rohingya and other foreigners are not observing the country's lockdown arrangements, known locally as the Movement Control Order. One Malaysian anti-Rohingya petition seen by ABC News has gathered almost 20,000 signatures in just 24 hours before being taken down by administrators. There are various online comments attacking Rohingya, followed by fears that they would face starvation in areas under the Enhanced Movement Control Orders, EMOCOs, and including their wholesale markets where there are large concentration of ethnic minorities who have fled the violence in Burma. The government has said that the foreigners will be helped by their local embassies. The Rohingyas, as you all know, however, are not recognized as citizens by the government of Burma, and as such, could not hope for any help by their embassy in Kuala Lumpur. Malaysia has previously allowed displaced Rohingya arriving by boat from Bangladesh or Burma to enter the country. But last week, and we showed this to you, we showed boat people arriving on the shores and being turned away. The government has turned back a boat carrying some 200 Rohingya refugees over COVID-19 concerns. They have been on the seas and been drinking seawater. Malaysia has confirmed 5,691 cases of the corona, including 96 fatalities. Some Rohingya are thought to have attended an Islamic gathering in late February, which was the source of Malaysia's first major outbreak. There have been various such gatherings were also taking place throughout the country on different topics. But within, we will be having in our show Adem Carroll from Burma Task Force, our campaign, and Adem is the director of UN programs in New York. And with him, we will be joined by two activists. One is Sharifa Shakira. She's the director of the Kuala Lumpur-based Rohingya Women's Development Network, a charity. And she, concerning this crisis in Malaysia right now, she said, with COVID-19, we're all afraid. But some, because of misconceptions, are using really, really harsh words against one community, creating hatred against Rohingya. So I'm going to bring on board Adem and Sharifa, and let me just bring them on. Assalamu alaikum, Brother Adem. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Sharifa. Thank you for joining us. And Sharifa, you're based in Houston now.
Yes.
And you're an ethnic Rohingya.
Yes, I am.
Welcome to the United States, where it's wonderful to have you. And with that, I'm also going to introduce our second guest, Iffat. So Iffat Rahman is a Bangladeshi Canadian who's been working on 3 genocide tribunals, addressing refugee needs with the UNHCR in Malaysia, and is a representative of the African Bar Association. She specializes in the Sahel region. Recently involved in extensive work on the Cameroon and monitoring and stressing the UN Security Council member states on Rohingya-related strategy. Well, thank you, ladies. We are really grateful for you to be on here just for our long show. And I'm going to hand it over to Adem to conduct this discussion.
Thank you.
Well, Ms. Eichmann, thank you both of you for being on this show. Justice for All Now is a new streaming show that focuses on human rights concerns. Justice for All, of course, has a special interest in advocating for persecuted minorities, and one of those minorities is the Rohingya. Unfortunately, it's a global trend now during the coronavirus pandemic that poor people suffer and refugees and displaced people suffer more than many other groups, partly because of crowding, but partly because of xenophobia and hatred. And it's very distressing that in Malaysia, which has been long thought to be better at at messaging on the Rohingya issue, that their very large Rohingya population is now being targeted uh, through a hate campaign. So I wanted to ask first for Sister Sharifa to speak a little bit about how she came to found her organization. I understand you were in Malaysia for 21 years. So it would be great to hear about the Rohingya community there and your efforts to start an NGO.
Thank you. First, Assalamu alaikum. Um, when living in Malaysia for so long, actually, there are a lot of other issues that the refugees are having include there are many other refugees are living in Malaysia, including Rohingya. So because the government is not signatory to Refugee 1951 Convention, so there are many things that refugee cannot do. Like example, we cannot go to school, public school for education, cannot work, cannot access to healthcare and stuff like that. And a part of that, they are people are coming in by boats, and especially for women issues, there are a lot of young girls, women who've been trafficked into Malaysia. A lot of horrible things happen to them, and uh, there's no people who've been doing much work about it. So in 2016, these things came to my mind that we have to do something for our community, especially for women, and for so that we can protect them, and as well as give them the voice. And we need women leaders in our community, so that we all speak up for each other and empower each other. So with that idea, RWDN, which is Rohingya Women Development Network, was founded in Kuala Lumpur. So we started giving education to our women. We give them skills so that they can financially become independent, and empower them through other skills. So currently, our program are still been running in Kuala Lumpur because of the virus has been locked down. Because of the lockdown, our organization, the center is closed for the moment. So these are the programs that we have been doing with Rohingya women, the young girls, children, especially. So uh, my experience living in Malaysia for quite a long time, it whatever happening today is very shocking. Um, it's hard to believe that these things, this kind of comment and this kind of situation might happen for the Rohingya community in Malaysia. So it breaks my heart from here to see things, and even on my social media, people are commenting and um, accusing and having a wrong perception about Rohingya community. So yeah, and people in Kuala Lumpur are worried. They don't know what to do. They message me. They are very afraid and very concerned about the situations over there, and they don't have any voices. They can't do anything. That's the scary part of it. So yeah, we are hoping. We came out with a statement, RWDN, our organization, and also another Rohingya-based organization in Kuala Lumpur recently. The statement to clarify the wrong perception that the Malaysian have been having towards Rohingya, and we give them the clear idea what's actually happening. Um, it seems that many people have read it, and the media have been covering the statement. Um, Yet, I think it's not the Malaysian are still not understand yet what's been happening, and they're still accusing, and they still having the wrong perception towards Rohingya in Malaysia.
Sister Sharifa, I understand that some of these anti-Rohingya images that we're looking at now, starting with the image of the dog representing the Rohingya taking over the bed, those are not funny, and there are many of them. I've seen them on your Facebook page too. What is the impact on you personally and on people you know of this hate campaign?
To be very honest, even I'm far away, from Malaysia. Yet these pictures and the comments is breaks my heart. Is emotionally, I'm suffering emotionally, and I, I don't know. I have to be angry with them, or I don't know how to feel about this, because. We are in Malaysia, not recognized as refugee. In Myanmar, we are not even citizen, and people are hating us. Like this kind of pictures, like dogs, and we take over their house and stuff like that. Being pushed out here and there like a ping pong, So it breaks my heart, and it's emotionally torturing me. It's just hard, and it's torture me more thinking that what Rohingya community in Malaysia actually is going facing through. They are very hopeless, they are very afraid, and on top of that is the coronavirus crisis in Malaysia. Everybody's locked down, and they can't go out. They don't have food at home to eat, and on top of that is Ramadan, and now is this kind of messages and things. So it's really hard for us. It's really hard for the Rohingya community in Malaysia. I think it's not only in Malaysia, overall, every Rohingya, even outside of Malaysia, are affected with this.
Muslim women are often targeted because they're visibly Muslim, at least in Western countries. But every Rohingya is maybe visibly Rohingya, or at least, is not treated as Malaysian. And I wondered about the history of prejudice against Rohingya. As you said, they're not given rights as refugees because the country hasn't signed on to the Refugee Convention. I was wondering if Iffie, you could speak to that. I understand that you worked with the UNHCR, the UN High Commissioner of Refugees.
Hi, thank you so much for having me on your show. Thank you for the discussion you're having on this issue. So I was with the UNHCR in 2012, so a long time ago. Unfortunately, what you're saying it sounds so true to me now. What the work that we've done in the past, just 8 years ago, and I'm like, yeah, everything sounds exactly the things that I worked on. And so, mind you, I was in the medical side of the UNHCR, and so, like as you said, they don't have rights. Rohingya refugees in Malaysia don't have rights, and it's primarily because Malaysia had not signed the Refugee Convention. It did not ratify the Refugee Convention, and it prevents Rohingya folks in Malaysia to have, access to education, healthcare, you name it. They don't have it. If I'll give you an example, it's just how dire the situation was when I was there. It's if, let's say, a Rohingya person were to work somewhere and they did not get paid, there's nothing you could do because there were no legal rights for us to go after someone who was not getting paid. There's just because they were not recognized as refugees, they were not recognized as legal people in Malaysia. So it's basically you're trying to defend someone who was quote unquote working illegally in Malaysia. And that you could see the impact that has on the community. And at that time, what I have to say that I personally, I could be wrong, did not see these kinds of messages or flyers saying anti-Rohingya stuff anywhere. So you can imagine how scared I am when I see these flyers saying like Rohingya folks get out of the country or like you can land here. It's really frightful knowing the fact already you have a group of people with no or little rights in Malaysia are now being targeted. It's really scary. Adam, you did in terms of your question. I was wondering, I should have had a chat with my supervisor at the UNHCR just to get an idea of what was happening. And as you know, like I'm also Bangladeshi, so for me this is quite sensitive. Because a lot of the folks, from my understanding, they were going from the Bangladeshi camps to Malaysia via boats, but I think my own country also said, we're not gonna take them back, basically. And even I've read that they said um, that they did not see the boats, so they did not even recognize, and they said they're just not going to accept it. So I'm terrified what it means for people who are wanting to leave Bangladesh and wanting to go to Malaysia. And I saw some of the images coming out with the people and the condition they were in. It's just horrendous.
There's a rule called non-refoulement, and I was wondering if you could say something about that, what this means. And it's an international norm. Is it binding on the government of Myanmar, of Malaysia?
I would say so, but you have to understand, like, there are things like, I think we activists can between being activists and then the legal world. I mean, if you think about it, I want to give you an example between Malaysia and Australia in 2012, right? Where Australia it ratified the Refugee Convention. And you can see the way they behave with the refugees when we had people from Malaysia and going to Australia, and sometimes they would not accept the boats. They would not and they try to. I remember this clearly. We had folks who actually worked with the UNHCR, like translators who are Rohingya people, and they were capsized, right? I mean, it was a very similar situation where even Australia probably would not want to, take the people in. So what do you do? So you have a legal instrument that may say it's binding, but how countries behave with those legal instruments, that's different. And whereas Malaysia, their biggest defense in terms of most of the ASEAN countries that they have not ratified the Refugee Convention. And I keep saying Rohingya because it's like the biggest issue in Southeast Asia regarding refugees.
I have a question, Iffat. So yesterday, someone was asking, what can they do, right? What aside from perhaps calling the embassies and pleading on their behalf? So people who are concerned about this, who see this happening, what can they do?
So I'll give you from my own experience working with the UNHCR in Malaysia. We were processing folks who wanted to leave the country, right? So we would be the person who would be dealing with our guest profile, right? We would be the one saying, okay, she qualifies as a refugee. Now we have to put her in another country, or another country has to take her in. So you have countries like the United States, Canada, Germany, those Nordic countries, Scandinavian countries saying, she qualifies as a refugee, we're going to take them in. As a person who is in Canada, what can I do? I can ask my government to say, hey, I would like you to bring some refugees in from Malaysia. I could do that. I could ask my government to pass a bill saying, I would like you to take 10,000 Rohingya refugees into Canada. And I would love for you to bring them from Malaysia. As not a Malaysian, I cannot do anything in Malaysia, right? It's no problem. But I have power in my own country. As in the United States, which Adam and I work quite closely on. I mean, that I could go, we could go to the House and then ask the Senate also pass a bill to bring the refugees in, right? So if you're in Australia, that's something you could do. If you're in New Zealand, you could say, we should pass a bill saying we should take so many refugees in New Zealand. There are things that we could do living in Western countries, and if we, I mean, right, we have the legal spectrum, right? We're seeing like the ICC and the ICJ, but then those things do not immediate like answer the needs of the Rohingya people immediately. I mean, these people, right? I mean, what's going to happen? Like, you cannot wait on the ICC or the ICJ to bring these boat people in, right? As a Bangladeshi person, like, I can ask my government, you have to be much more kind to bring the people in, which I have. So, I mean, Bangladeshi community has some power. We have a diaspora community in New York. We have a diaspora community in the UK. We have a diaspora community in Canada. We have that power to ask our government to do something. Um, and
Legally,
but that's I'm sorry.
sorry to cut you. Legally, is it possible? And this is something that one of our followers asked yesterday. That could someone go in and rescue? Could a government go in and rescue these 200 boat people, and that are on in a boat right now, and bring them to their own shores?
Yes, yes. There's another law that allows it, and but this we're talking about maritime law. We actually have some examples of that. I think there was another similar case that happened with, I forget. There was another but it was a captain, and he was in the water, and then he saw these people in dire need. They were not the Rohingya. They were like, it was a while back, but it's just an example. And then I believe it was Australia that wouldn't allow the boat with the people to come in the water. So then the under certain maritime law, I forget which one, he actually went to another country, would allow them in. So you just have to find another country that says, I'm going to allow you in the water. And we see this like, and I'm going to take it a different direction, like we saw with the ships, with the coronavirus folks, right, somewhere in the ships. And then we had countries which would not allow them to dock on their port. But some countries do that. So you will just have to, if you find a country that is legally allowed to dock in the country, you can rescue them. There are maritime laws. But again, the problem is not that we don't have enough laws. The problem is that countries do not follow the laws, and we can't do anything about it. I mean, I'm going after Australia because what you were seeing right now is something that we've seen with Australia, and that has more
I was wondering if maybe Sharifa could answer the same question from her perspective. And also, I don't know, Sharifa, if you were in Malaysia during the Andaman Sea crisis in 2015, but is there anything that you can think of from that period that could be useful now?
At that time it was very scary because a lot of people were coming and many people were die in the sea, and many young women was trafficked, and it was horrible. Their body was found in the borders, in the jungles. And there are a lot of young girls that currently I'm working with them now, that were sold into marriages and stuff like that. So there's like even my relatives, my mom relatives who are coming with the boats, they die. And it's horrible that a lot of people are coming, and we got we are afraid. And I think the Malaysian also very afraid that it might happen like that again in Malaysia. So it's, for me, I don't want that kind of situation happen again in Malaysia, where people are coming by boats. And there are people who drinks urine because they don't have water on boat. And there are people who jump into the sea because they are so hungry that they cannot control, and they die after that. The body was found, the woman been raped, and it's horrible. um,
Hmm.
so nobody want that things to happen again, and for us not to make sure that not happen again, actually we is the main problem in Myanmar, I would say. So closing borders is not a solution, I think. The solution of it is solving the situation, the problem of Rohingya in Myanmar. That's the only way can stop people coming into countries by boats.
It's certainly true that the root causes of this disaster are the military and Burmese government, uh, their genocide against the Rohingya minority. And we hope in the second half of this show, we'll talk about some possible lines of work in the international criminal courts. But still looking at uh, this situation in Malaysia, I understand that Halim Ishak, who runs the Malaysian Community Care Foundation, is one of the main instigators of this anti-Rohingya campaign. He went on the radio. He says he's a former commando and that Rohingya are less civilized than the Aborigines in Malaysia. And then he goes on about cleanliness and all kinds of things that are the usual insults of a poor community, that when you want to call them dangerous or a threat or an infection or what have you. But then this has spread. It is good to see some pushback. The Mufti of Penang has pushed back against this hate. Two commissioners from a human rights body called Suhakam or Suhakam. The Human Rights Commission of Malaysia has also called out the hate, but it's going to be hard to stop. So I was wondering, Sharifa, if you had any thoughts about how to stop this hatred from continuing and even growing and making life very dangerous for the Rohingya minority there.
Um, these things happen very quickly. I will say the messages and the comments happen very quickly and spread very fast. In the social media, and people even in other country, like example, my friends in United States, in Canada, these people as well get targeted. They also get the comment, saying all these things. And but the one things about it is that the whoever doing this thing, whoever commenting in social media, spreading this misconception and wrong information about Rohingya, they do not understand what is the who is the Rohingya in the beginning of they don't know why Rohingyas are living in Malaysia. They don't know what been happening in Myanmar. They don't have any correct information about Rohingya, and they just sharing whatever they have been seeing. And um, this is not people that who do not know us doing this. They are people from within, um, the people that I know, that I we have lived in a community, the locals. Actually, they want as well, sharing and commenting and this kind of stuff. So um, uh, this can be done. It's not. I think Malaysian. My experience living in Malaysia, Malaysian are very sympathetic, and then they are loving human beings. So I don't know what's the really trigger them. There are a few things, but I'm not sure which ones that really trigger them. About
Perhaps perhaps it's COVID. Perhaps the fears from COVID and the uncertainty is what is driving this.
There are some of it, but I think there's something behind it. We all, everyone in other countries, like example United States, we are, people are dying in the largest number now. So everyone is having the fear of COVID-19, and we all afraid. And yeah, but in Malaysia it's the same. So of course that's one of the things that Malaysian are getting very upset, very angry, and committing and stuff like that. um, but I think there are something else they are something else, because it's so wide, it's so. And these are the people who are educated, the people that I know, uh, also sharing and also thinking the wrong,
Mm.
like believing the wrong information towards Rohingya. So I think is, I don't know what's the exactly things that trigger them, but there are something behind it. And if you ask me, can this be stopped? I would say yes, because Malaysian are, loving people. I live with them. It's just something is there, once we figure out what is the trigger, what is the real issue behind this comment and campaign. I think this can be calmed down. And there are actually good people that actually are speaking up about this, even from the government. Example, the Anwar Ibrahim, he also speaking up, giving the correct information about why Rohingya. And the Malaysian actually thinking that Rohingya demanding the citizenship and equal rights in Malaysia,
Mm.
us demanding places to live and stuff like that. That's the wrong information. Rohingya never demand for citizenship or equal rights as Malaysian in Malaysia. We just ask for temporary protection, until we can go back to our country. And this kind of information, the clarification, I think, have to be put out there. We need to tell the Malaysian that not in anger, like hate cannot overcome hate. Love have to overcome the hate, and darkness cannot overcome darkness. So we have to be very patient, I will say to my fellow Rohingya, because even if we get angry, there's nothing we can do. It's going to backfire and it's going to put things worse. So be patient. This is the challenges, I think, that Allah is giving us, to go through. And inshallah we can face this. We have gone through much worse things in our life in Myanmar. So these things can be end. And people are speaking up, the community, the government people are speaking up, the local people are speaking out, the good people are speaking up about this. So the wrong information, they cannot prove whatever they're accusing, claiming towards Rohingya. They cannot prove it, so it will end soon, inshallah.
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 I wanted to, Brother Adam, on this note, I wanted to share that this hate is not just being targeted against Rohingya; it's also being targeted against Malaysians who are helping Rohingya.
Yeah.
So a good friend of mine, Tengku Emma, is who's been a great supporter and of Rohingya people, and she is herself the head of the European Rohingya Council in Malaysia, and she's been doxxed. Her son has been targeted. Her home has been targeted. She's gotten rape threats, and it's terrible. The what is happening to even people who so this tells me that there is a concentrated, what you were talking about before, Sharifa, that there is a concentrated effort to target this hate, and it's not just appearing randomly, but these flames of hate are being spread by people. What can you tell us a little bit more about the Malaysians who have have been so helpful to Rohingyas over there?
Yeah, I mean, people are, they message us privately. They been standing up for us. So most of the Rohingya, like even myself, when people comment on my own social media and stuff like that, I just quiet. I just ignore it. Is because there's no point, I think, arguing with them, because haters going to hate and they don't understand, so they won't understand. If they are ready to understand, they will a little listen. What is the statement that we come out when we try to talk to them, they will listen. But just without knowing anything, just blaming and using really really harsh word, is proof that they are not going to listen. So so many Rohingya people try to ignore and do what is necessary to do, because yeah. And so the local, our friends, step in, and then they stand up and they defend us and saying that that's wrong and the information is not correct and this and that. So even they themselves, like you say, got targeted, and they also been uh, being called name. but these people still there, they don't give up, they still continuing trying to do creating awareness, positive awareness about this, trying to talk and educate the local as much as possible. And giving is show us that like example, when I get messages from them saying that don't give up, that's okay, just ignore them and stuff like that, we are with you. And this kind of words actually give us the positive vibes, and then give us the hope that inshallah this will end, because not everyone misunderstand about us. And like I say, Malaysian they are loving people, and it's not everyone. And people who are doing this, like example, one of in our Instagram page, there are people using one person making few accounts, fake accounts, and also commenting and stuff like that. So is there are some agenda behind it, but it's not all Malaysian thinking like that. Is there are people sitting there trying to um, portray that all Malaysian hate Rohingya, but I think it's
May-
not.
may- Maybe there's something that could be done to pressure Facebook and
Yeah.
Twitter to stop carrying the hate, because that
Mm,
often has been an issue,
yeah.
for example, in Burma itself. So maybe that's something that civil society organizations, including yours, could work together on. Your group working on women's empowering women, it sounds wonderful. Is there a website that people could visit, and
Yes.
how can people be supported?
We have a website. It's called rohingyawomen.org, and we are also very active on Facebook page, Rohingya Women Development Network. Um, so yeah, our organization. I'm very grateful towards the organization, even though I'm here now. The women that who never been to school, who never believe that they can go out there, speak up, be the leader of the community. Now they are leading the community, now they're leading the organization. They are facing going facing through the bigger challenges together with the community, giving them hope that that's okay, we can face this. So the organization have been doing great job, really impacting the community. And it have to go on for the long term, because for me it just started. And every efforts have to be count, and we need support so that we can go further.
Thank you very much, sister. Feel free to stay on if you want. Originally, we had planned to have the next part of this show discussing some of the work of the international community, especially the UN and the international courts. But I wanted to ask Iffat Rahman about ASEAN countries. In the past, we thought Malaysia was one of the main and best and most active countries in ASEAN regarding the Rohingya issue, advocating for Rohingya rights in public places. Despite what we've just heard, they may still be better than many of the other countries. Cambodia has had its own genocide, but Cambodia is a member of ASEAN and hasn't done anything for the Rohingya that I know of. Indonesia, one could say more. I was wondering what your thoughts are about pressuring ASEAN for action.
So let's start with Cambodia. We can see that Cambodia, whereas Malaysia and Bangladesh are not signatory to many or have not ratified a lot of the UN conventions, but Cambodia has. And what I mean by that, regarding the ICC, Cambodia is actually part. They ratified the Rome Treaty, which means they're legally obligated when those arrest warrants come out that Cambodia will have to turn over those folks to the ICC. Otherwise, theoretical route is to that then if not, then Cambodia is referred to the Security Council for violating that rule. Um, and regarding Indonesia, you have Indonesia sitting on the Security Council. And now we also have Vietnam sitting on the Security Council. So you have two ASEAN countries who you think would take an interesting or rather an active role in addressing these issues at the United Nations, at the highest level of the United Nations. And you don't see very much, they're not very active in that. And what this means is that they are either actively protecting Myanmar as an ASEAN country, or they are completely ignoring the issue that they should be addressing within their own territory. And in terms of and what I want to go back to Cambodia is that when Cambodia went through the genocide, you saw that the UN played such a terrible role in addressing the issue. And for this reason, Cambodia is very vocal on this issue at the UN, and they blame the Security Council for being very inactive, for not taking a stronger role in getting rid of Pol Pot. But it's very interesting to see that when they have a genocide happening in their own backyard, and when I mean Malaysia, I mean in Burma, Cambodia is very silent on this issue. And why does this matter? Because Cambodia is, as an ASEAN country, they tend to rotate their seats every year. So at 1 year, Cambodia is going to be the host of ASEAN. And and in terms of the ICJ, all these the rulings are as if they are bound to all the countries. So and we saw a lot of interesting things happening with the ASEAN countries regarding their relationship with the ICJ. When the rulings came out either in favor or not in favor in one of the ASEAN countries, you saw that ASEAN countries, they tend to respect the rulings coming out of the ASEAN countries, right? I mean, the ICJ regarding and we're talking about territorial disputes. So I think when the ICJ ruling does come out, it's going to play a really interesting role within the Malaysian context also. Now you see, because if you just follow Malaysia's history throughout its relationship with the ICJ, Malaysia on almost 100% of the time respects ICJ's ruling. And regarding this, so I'm just even going back on a different route. I honestly thought Malaysia and Bangladesh were the appropriate countries to take Myanmar to the ICJ or Burma to the ICJ. And going back again at the UN to see an African country coming in doing the work that one Asian and one ASEAN country should take the role, and you see that absent in leadership, it says a lot. It says that ASEAN, even though wanting to be a powerhouse in the world, can't even fix his own backyard. And what I mean by that also is that if you look at ASEAN countries, most of the Muslim population in the world are concentrated in the ASEAN countries. The highest amount of Muslim population do not live in Middle East or Africa, but in ASEAN countries. And then you see that ASEAN countries sitting back and watching its own minority getting wiped out, and it does nothing. It's remarkable.
I had a question about your work with the different genocide tribunals. If you maybe can say a few things about your role with those tribunals, and also I can't help but reflecting on what you just said, that some of the inaction that we see from ASEAN countries, whether it's Philippines or Cambodia or Laos or Indonesia or what have you, have to do with the long shadow of China and its influence everywhere. So I was wondering if your thoughts.
Brother Adam, I wanted to just also point out it took a lot of advocacy to get Gambia to go to ICJ as well. A lot of pushing and pressure behind the scenes and strategic. So it wasn't out of the blue. It was a lot of advocacy work that was put into this. So yes, when there was no leadership coming from ASEAN countries, we had to find someone else who could take that mantle of leadership, and we are very grateful to our friends in Gambia to take this case to the court.
So on a personal note, I want to say that my journey actually started with the Rohingya people. That's why I got so interested in the international criminal law. And so it's very personal, and the professional route has taken their route too. And in terms of the Gambia, I did work with the minister, and I were working at the Rwandan Genocide Tribunal together. He was in a different unit, and then I was in a different unit. I was in the registrar's office, and he was in the prosecutor's office. And so I went from I went from working at the UNHCR to Cambodia first, because I was not ready to give up on Asia. So and I was actually doing the civil society, a civil party, which means you represent the victim at the court. Not the prosecution or the defense, but we're just representing the victims and getting their statement out. That is set up in a different way than the other tribunals, because it is a hybrid tribunal, which means that it was a combination of Cambodia and the UN coming together. Which is a really, and many people don't bring up this issue, this other interesting point. How do you know it was a genocide in Cambodia? Well, it's because they went after the Cham people, who were the Muslim folks of Cambodia, right? That's how you determine. They went after the ethnic people, and then they went after the ethnic Vietnamese folks. Those are the only, I'm not wrong, but those are the only two ways they determined it was a genocide, because ethnic Khmer, killing ethnic Khmer is not genocide, but ethnic Khmer Rouge going after Muslim Chams, that determines it's a genocide. That is you don't see that. You're like, you have a country that went through genocide in Cambodia, and one of the ways they determined was because they went after the Muslims in the country, and yet that country is silent when it comes to the Rohingya issue. It's just insane. The Rwanda, where I worked in the registry, was very different. My work at the Yugoslav tribunal, I think, is much more interesting for this. I love my work in Rwanda. Arusha is amazing. But the Yugoslav one was quite interesting also, in a sense, because we had to wrestle with the Bosnia case that we saw at the ICJ. Because why this is very interesting for the lower point of view, rather, because the Bosnia case from the ICJ made it it was very interesting for the ICTY to navigate through. It's not the ruling that folks really wanted. It just said genocide happened, but these people did not commit it, versus the court was saying these people did commit the genocide. So you had like two rulings coming out of like two organs authorized by the Security Council coming in almost, I don't want to say in conflict, but they had to navigate. But the ICJ ruling did recognize the fact that we had the ICTY in place to make sure these, people who were committing the genocide were going to be held responsible. Do you see the interaction? Please, if you're not clear, let me know. I can maybe go into it. And then my last stunt was at the ICC, where I did work for the defense, and it was quite interesting. So a lot of Asia and Africa in my background.
It's very interesting. And maybe another time we'll get to go into more detail. Of course, we've got the Burmese government's response to the ICJ provisional measures expected in about 2 weeks or so. And that would be interesting to see. We already know that the government of Burma is not in compliance, and the Burmese military is escalating its violence in Rakhine State and Chin State and other ethnic states as well. So it's certainly will be interesting to see what round two will be in the ICJ, the International Court of Justice. I wonder if people want to ask questions, is there's still an opportunity, Sister Hena?
Yes, I would. So, for example, we just had a comment left that the Uyghur people stand in solidarity with our Rohingya brothers and sisters, and Uyghurs and Rohingya people both are victims of genocide. I would love to get a comment from you on that, since you've worked so closely with genocide cases. Do you see, we at Justice for All believe that the Uyghur people are going through not only a cultural genocide, but a physical genocide. And I'd love to get your comment on that.
I'm going to refrain from commenting on that because I don't have all the facts and I don't want to jump into something. But we saw, I'm going back to the ICJ regarding China. China is very interesting because China is not a signatory or ratified the Rome Treaty, so they're off the ICC, unfortunately. Unless, like you got forced deportation again happening in another member party state, then we could go after China, right? That's a legal route that we see that we're doing with Burma. Regarding the ICJ route, see, we had a ruling against China at the ICJ, and China, if you look at how it behaved, it completely disregarded the ruling. And the fact, so another thing that people, Adam, you and I spoke quite a bit on this stuff. So how do you implement the ICJ rulings, right? If you have, and you do it through the Security Council, right? And China sits on the Security Council, which makes it very difficult. But the other things we could do with ICJ rulings, as you've seen previously, Europeans at the Security Council said they recognize the rulings and they stand with the ruling, right? That is something that we need to remind ASEAN countries that in the past, they stood with, they respected the rulings. The decisions came out, they agreed, they let their land go in order to agree with the ICJ rulings. They should do the same thing with the Rohingya, with the ICJ rulings. If Malaysia, if Burma does not agree with, and does not respect those rulings, they need to look into harsher conditions and to whether would it be sanctions. They need to force Burma to respect the rulings of the ICJ. Otherwise, they should either kick Burma out of the ASEAN or take, maybe it can look into targeted economic sanctions within the ASEAN countries. Also, what they could do is ratify the Rome Treaty to give them more power to act in the interest of international law, in the interest of the United Nations, and and just go with international law in terms of taking harsher stance with Burma.
Interesting. Well, audience, I'd like to ask our audience if anybody has any questions, please do post them. We can see them on the Facebook page stream, and our guest is still here. And so if we want to have any questions that you have been thinking of, we're willing to take them. And in the meanwhile, Brother Adem, we do have an action alert out for the United Nations. Did you want to share that with our audience?
Well, no, because I wasn't expecting to. But if the audience certainly is encouraged to go to our website where we have the action alerts, and they're constantly refreshed, and there are always actions to take that can be useful, especially if more than one person takes them. So please be part of positive action for the Rohingya cause and for the cause of refugees and displaced people everywhere. Unless we do something, unless there's grassroots action, unless there's a voice in partnership with impacted communities, this will just continue on and be a depressing story. And the world, with 71 million displaced people and refugees now, those numbers could double. I mean, with climate change, with other wars, this disaster that we're certainly living in now with the coronavirus could look like a picnic in future years. We've got to take action.
Thank you. Did you want to say something before we end the show?
Yeah, I think for us in the Asian community, I think we need to familiarize ourselves with more international law, because this is the best way we can hold our government accountable. And what I mean by is something that you asked, the first question was like, what can we do? And actually, there are things that our governments may not have ratified the refugee convention, but they have ratified the maritime law that says if someone is in distress, they have to go rescue them. And to remind the governments, like, hey, you've said this. What are you going to take me to court for something that you said you're going to do?
Exactly.
So I think, like, us as the Asian community, either Bangladeshis or Malaysians, I mean, I've lived in both countries, and I think it's very important that we ourselves become educated, and and not forget why the Rohingya people are leaving Burma. I mean, it's so easy to get caught up in our own little world and say, we need to, they're taking our stuff, or like, why are they coming to our land? There's a reason. Nobody wants to leave their home, and they say, oh, we're just gonna, give up our home and just go somewhere else because that's what we want to do. But there's a reason they're facing a genocide. They've faced a genocide and discrimination that we have, we ourselves have an experience, right? So I think we need to be very sympathetic. And as Bangladeshis, I think we've gone through enough genocide, famine, you name it, separation. We've gone through it. So I think a little sympathy goes a long way. And I'm very grateful to my country for doing what we've done.
And Sister Hena, I was wondering if you might just mention the upcoming conference.
Yes. So this was going to be my final call to all of you. Thank you so much for joining our show today. It has been a absolutely interesting and fascinating discussion. I'm always uplifted by meeting Rohingya women and women who are fighting for justice in every stage, like Iffat is at her work, and Sharifa with the Rohingya Women's Organization. I urge you guys to follow their work, follow their Facebook, their public work, and support them in their causes. It's hard enough being a woman activist, but when you're indulged, when hate comes your way and no one stands up for you, even in those moments when you have been fighting for the community, then that feeling it's a very dangerous feeling, because then it makes you want to just quit. So this is something that I urge to, if you see someone being attacked online, especially women activists, please do stand up for them, and obviously our brothers in the fight as well. I did want to mention we are going to have our Justice in Ramadan International Conference about the prophetic mission to establish equity and justice in the world, this on May 8th to the 11th. Tomorrow we'll share a little bit more about the conference and where you can register and who all will be joining us. We have a fascinating lineup of experts in the field of human rights, genocide, and justice in Islam. So please do join us. Thank you so much, and welcome again to the Justice for All Now show.